Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new to the channel, I fix things, all kinds of things. Lately it's been a lot of small engine stuff, but I do electronics, anything, really. You know, you got to survive in this world, so it's good to learn how to do these things yourself. You save a lot of money, whether it's your car or a washer, dryer, whatever makes your house run. If you can master maintaining all of those things, you're better off, that's for sure. Now, a neighbor gave me this to fix, and I already cleaned it up. Usually when I get something to repair, I clean it all up first. It's just the way I do it. I like everything clean. But the issue with this was that they used it a few times, and then the way it was explained to me is it would run and then just quit running. But what I'm getting now is probably because after that occurred, it sat for a year or two more after that, and I'm pulling it over and not getting anything from it. So we're going to dig into it. It's a Homelite 2700 PSI. It's got the Honda GCV-160 motor. I did smell some a varnish smell coming from here. So that's another indication that more than likely we're looking at the carburetor here. So we're going to have to dismantle this thing, disassemble, clean it all up, and see what we get. So stick around if you're interested in this kind of thing, and we're going to get into it. Alright, we're going to start by taking this air box off, and this is a 10 millimeter socket. I can smell the varnish, it's just I can smell it right from here. It's pretty strong. So we got to get this off first, so we can get to the heart of the issue, so to speak. These usually are pretty long bolts. There's one. And there's two. Now we have to be careful with this carburetor because here's like a spacer. See that spacer? That just fell out of there. And as I recall from working on my mower that has the same carburetor, there's a lot of gaskets. But I could be wrong. Maybe that's the other, one of the other mowers. I work on a bunch of them. I just gotta get this. I'm gonna have to grab some needle nose pliers, because you don't want to tear. There's a, and you can't see it, but there's a hose here, a rubber hose that attaches there, and if you just tear at it, you take the chance of it breaking that. So the best way to do it is to take and turn it first. So I'm going to grab some needle nose and do that. Alright, we're all needle nosed up here. Turning it. That'll just loosen it up for us. There we go. We'll put those things together. See already, see we have a gasket here that fell out, and we have the spacer here. So we're just going to have to, when we put it back together, match up these holes. There's a hole here. So that definitely goes here, and more than likely this goes in front of it. It's not too complex, as long as you get that hole lined up properly. And the gasket looks like it's in good condition. I can really smell the varnish now. And that's moving, but it's got some hesitation to it. So we're going to have to unhook these linkages here. There's a spring, and then there's another connecting rod here, and we're going to remove them now. Alright, so what I think I'm going to do first here, and I'll have to do it anyway to manipulate this carburetor because of the way these are hooked up here, these linkages, is I'm going to make sure there's gas flowing from the tank to the carburetor. There could be something clogged up in there. So I'm going to remove this hose. I got myself a can and a container, and then we can get it removed, open this bowl up and take a look at what's in there. I got a feeling there's going to be some garbage in there. So I'm just going to take my needle nose. So I'm just going to slide it over. Then I'm going to take my pliers and just turn this first. Turn the hose. So it's moving pretty freely now. I should be able to pull it off. And here's where we might get a little bit of gas. It is off here, but there's probably a little bit of gas in there from before, maybe. But I got the can ready. Alright, so I didn't get any gas out of there. That's good. What I am going to do now is turn this gas on and see if I get a flow out of this. Yep, I am getting some gas out of there. We got some gas out of there. It's a good thing. So we're going to continue here. We know that this line is clear. It's always good to do that anyway, to flush it out a little bit in case there was some sediment in there. But we turned it back off. We're going to continue with this carburetor, removing it. Alright, so now that we have that hose, the fuel line removed, you can see it's much easier to tip the carburetor, and that'll allow these linkages to come out. It's probably the easiest way to do it. Then you just turn it to the left, and there we have our linkages are there. We have our carburetor off. So let's remove this bowl and take a look inside, see what we got. Alright, so I'm still emptying this carburetor here. It doesn't even smell like gas. Doesn't even smell like gas. So we're going to go ahead and remove this. It's going to be the 10 millimeter, the ball here, so we can get a look at the float. Get a look inside here. I might have to get my no, it popped off. You can kind of see that, the yellowishness in there. We got some gunk in the trunk right here. You could see that debris. So that's definitely where our issue is. We're going to have to get in here with a screwdriver and remove the jet. We'll go ahead and pull this pin out of here and take the float out and take a look at the needle that's in there. Go ahead and pull this pin out of here. There's our float. There's our needle here. rubber looks good on it. I don't see a problem with the rubber on the end of there. And there's the inside of the carburetor there. This could be a little more free. It's tight. That's okay. So our next step is we're going to go ahead and give this thing a good cleaning. Typically what I'll use is some wire. I use like an Ethernet wire, and we got to remove the jets first. Then we'll do a cleaning with some carburetor cleaner, and we'll also use that in conjunction with the Ethernet wire, and we'll clean out all the holes in these jets in here. So stick around, that's what we're going to do next. Just wanted to give you a closer view of that. You see that yellowness on there? It's coated with the old gas. So let's continue with the cleaning here. Give you another example. Here's the float. I'm going to scrape off. Hear that? See it? So that's all that garbage on there from the old gas. Alright, so before I soak this stuff, I want to remove this jet, the main jet here in the center. So you got to use the right screwdriver. If you don't use the right screwdriver, you can end up stripping. It's usually brass, and you'll strip that in there. So I'm just going to stick it in there, turn it to the left, wait till it catches on there, and then this one was fairly easy, but I've had some where they don't come off very easily. And I'm just going to tip this up, try to tap the jet out of there. It's coming. It's just about there. See if I can grab it. Yeah, I think I got it there. Alright, there's going to be the jet. And usually there's an emulsion tube. Usually there's another tube in there. There we go. So here's our jet. There's a lot of holes in there, and usually what happens is that's where your problem's going to be. One of these holes will be clogged, so we're going to make sure we clean this up nice. There's a better view at the jet that we just took out. So we're going to clean that up, and I'm going to soak the rest of it and come back to it shortly. What do you think? Can we fix it? You think we can fix it? You gonna help me fix it? Are you ready to help me fix it? Can you do it? Will it start? Okay, so let's just get a recap of what's going on here. I have the carburetor, which I've cleaned a little bit by hand, but I'm soaking it in white vinegar for a short time and just keeping an eye on it, and I see a bunch of sediment on the bottom, so that seems to be working. I'm just looking for household things to, instead of using chemicals for that. And we have a jar here that we've collected a sample by taking the hose after this petcock here, turned it on, and let the gas flow, and the flow looks good. And a jar is an easiest way to kind of examine it, and I don't see any sediment in there, so that's a good sign. We have the main jet that we removed with the screwdriver that's soaking in a carburetor cleaner right now. We have the float pin, the float, which is just plastic. It's all cheap these days. And we have the needle with the rubber on the end that seals the hole in the carburetor, and much like your toilet, it will continually supply gas to this bowl here, which we've cleaned up. This had a layer of yellow varnish on it. It's all cleaned up. Looks like new. So that's where we're at here. We're going to let these things soak, probably overnight. This I won't let soak overnight. I'll probably come back in probably, I don't know, a couple hours and check on it and then remove it from it. Then the rest I'll do with just a thin piece of wire. Any holes that are in the carb, I'll clean it out with an Ethernet wire or a piece of copper wire. It's small enough. And that's where we're at. So we'll be back when we're ready to continue and get this thing running. Why aren't you helping me out? You've been laying here for hours just having a good old time, and I'm doing all the work. Okay guys, so since we're waiting for everything to clean itself and soaking it, we really can't do much else. So I thought for beginners I would explain the basic function of the pressure washer, the components. Usually on a pressure washer, up towards the top, you're going to have these tips that you can mount in here for different functions, different pressures. You'd want to pay close attention to the color and the instructions on your pressure washer to make sure you use the right tip so you don't damage your deck or siding, because that pressure can come out just pretty powerful. I mean, you can cut your foot with it. So you really want to be careful with the pressure washer. So that's that. Of course, we have the motor here. In the front here on this model, we have the soap container where you put the soap. And down below, probably the most important component, see if I can zoom in a little better here, is the pump. And you have the hose that's going to the pump where the soap is distributed. Sometimes this comes off. Probably going to have to put a small clamp on that. But you have the motor here. We'll try to get a better focus. And that's a very important part of this whole thing. Really, it's pretty simple. You have the motor that turns and just powers the pump, and that's what increases the pressure. The pump, I've seen them for $200 something. I've seen them for a little over $100. Really depends on the model, but that's the heart of the whole unit. So if that goes, then you're going to have to replace it. Okay, so on this model, basically, a lot of the older models, lawn mowers, etc., have a long stick that would go into the engine, and it would have a range on the dipstick that would tell you if it was a safe level. These are plastic ones now that they're putting in the machines that basically perform the same function, but you don't have the long dipstick coming up. So I did check the oil in here, and the oil is clean. There's no issue with that. Level is fine. Other than that, that's the basic pressure washer. Okay, so looking at the rear of the machine, we have the hookup for your water supply, your hose, and we have this for the sprayer, the nozzle gun, and that's what the hookup there is for. On the back we have some model numbers, and we have additional instructions laid out, which is pretty nice. And on here we have a nozzle selection guide, which tells you what the appropriate nozzle is for whatever application that you're doing, which is helpful. So that's a small overview on this power washer, and we're going to let these components soak overnight and we're going to continue to work on this, and I'm confident that it's going to run. Alright, so next thing we're going to do is get a look at this spark plug while we're waiting for the other things to settle and for the carb to be cleaned and whatnot. We're going to go ahead and remove this spark plug, just get a look at it. This way we can see, how the engine is operating. If there's oil on it, we can tell a lot from the condition of a spark plug. So there is it's a light color on there. We can clean that up, not a big deal. It's in very good shape. There's no rust on it. You can see it here. So we're going to go ahead and just clean it up on the wire brush real quick. We're not going to get too aggressive with it, just a light cleaning of it, and then we'll put it back in. Okay, so it's been drying all night. You can see the carb is nice and clean. Everything's clean on it. Now we're going to proceed by putting the float back in, which is all clean. What we need to do is take this little needle with the rubber on the end, and it just hangs from the bottom here. It's just going to hang from the bottom, just like that. And then we set it in there, and the needle goes in that hole. And then we take our pin and we replace the pin in there. And there you go, center the pin. And what should happen is when this float is down, you should not get any airflow through there. And when you lift it up, you should get the airflow. So that looks good. Alright, so we have our float and we put our pin in. So next thing we have to do is put these jets back in. Now this main jet here has all been cleaned. You can even use a wire brush, one of the bristles, and go through the holes. I did that. Go through every hole, make sure they're all clean. And the way this is going to drop in is this pointy part, the longest part, is going to go in first. So you drop it in there, and then we have this, which is also has a hole in it. But you can clean that. That's all been cleaned. This is the part that screws in to hold that jet in there. So when you're turning it, you want to make sure the threads catch nicely first before you continue with your screwdriver. Go ahead and tighten that down. Don't want to over tighten it, it's good enough. And we're going to put our bowl on. And then our bolt that holds the bowl on. And we're going to tighten it down. You don't have to get too crazy here either. You do want it firm. So there's our carburetor ready to be put back on the machine. So let's move on to that step. Alright, so when putting this back on, the order of the gaskets are very important. You're going to have a gasket on the engine first. Then you're going to have this black plastic spacer. Now I've seen models that have channels on the back side. This one does not have it. So it's just a spacer that's going to go in there. Then we have this larger gasket. This is going to go upward. You just have to make sure these holes, there's several holes. These two are for the bolts, but this one here needs to be clear and needs to be lined up. So it's going to go in like that. And I've already started putting the bolts in here. It helps keep the gaskets in position. You can see here there's another gasket, and that has the hole in it, which is lined up with the hole on this housing. So we're going to go ahead and connect these linkages here. We're going to put our spring back in. There we have our spring, and then we need to put that linkage in, and then we're going to put the choke linkage in. So there you have it. All our linkages are connected. The choke is connected. So we're going to proceed now with putting the gaskets in order. And the easiest thing I do is, if you have to, take a video of it or photograph when you first take it apart, because sometimes when you come back to it, you know, who knows when, a week or a couple days, you might forget the order. Now, a lot of mowers don't have as many gaskets. This one does, and sometimes they fall when you take the bolts out and you don't know what order they go in. But you can always refer to the service manual if you have to. But in this case, I know the order, so I'm just going to continue with assembling this. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and put the gas line, hook it up here, and then I'll slide up this little clamp here. I'm going to need my needle nose. These types of clamps can be a little tricky. We just need to slide it up. Slide it up there, just like that. So we have the clamp in place. So we're going to go ahead and put our plastic spacer, the flat side against the engine. Then we have this piece of gasket. Just like that. Like I said, it could be tricky getting this lined up. And we'll go ahead and stick the bolts in there. Again, making sure that everything is lined up.
Ten minutes later.
Alright, with a little bit of struggle in lining it up, we were able to get the gaskets all in order. It is a little tricky because you're working with this big box, and there's a hose you have to reconnect in the back. We got our fuel line hooked up. So we're going to go ahead and tighten these down. And we should be almost ready to give it a test run. You just want to make sure it's snug. You don't have to get crazy with this. You want those gaskets to seal nice. So that's good. We're going to verify the operation of the choke. It is opening and closing, so that's working. That's good. So all we need to do is put our air filter back in. This is the one they gave me. It's not the best. It is clean, but should probably be replaced. But for now, it should do the trick. Just like that. And then we'll go ahead and put the cover on. Put it on start.
Epic fail.
Alright, I guess you win some and you lose some. But the carb needed to be clean, that's for sure. We have multiple issues here. It looks like we don't have any spark, so we're going to have to take the top cover off. Take these bolts out here, get the cover off, and get a look at the module in there, the coil. And maybe it's just water, a ton of water got in there and it's rusty. We can clean it up and try that. Otherwise we'll have to replace it, but I'm going to go ahead and remove these three bolts from the top and get this removed, and we can get a look at it. Alright, as you can see, here's our coil. You can see there is some rust on it. Here's the flywheel, and that has some rust on it. Now when this turns, it passes this coil and creates an electromagnetic field, which results in you getting a spark out of the spark plug. So it's not always the spark plug. This is what produces the spark. So what I'm going to try to do is take this off. I do have a couple spares. Whether it'll fit or not, I'm not sure. This is the switch. That looks a little corroded. We can change that. That hooks up to here, which is the cutoff circuit, which cuts off the it cuts this off from working, so it doesn't produce a spark. So we're going to go ahead and remove this, and we'll clean this up and see what we get. Alright, so this is pretty simple to remove. We just have these two bolts. This one's more of a peg type post, obviously, because the our rope mechanism hooks up to that. But we're just going to remove this. It's probably a 10mm, same size socket. So we'll do that and see what it looks like on the opposite side of the coil here. Alright guys, so here's what it looks like with the coil removed. Here's our coil. You can see it does have some rust on it. All we can hope is that we can clean this up and it'll produce a spark. And I'm also going to clean up this flywheel a little bit with some sandpaper. So that hopefully will take care of it. You want to try the little things first before you get into buying parts for no reason. So we're going to go ahead and clean this up, put it back on, and see if we get any spark then. that's good enough. Alright, I'm just going to use a wire brush. Just a wire brush. Get in there and clean that wheel off. That looks good. I always like to just put a little WD-40 or something on there. And hopefully we don't need a new coil. But as I said, I do have some, whether they'll fit on here, some of my spare parts. Alright guys, so we lucked out on that one. It was just the coil was dirty, and obviously we had an issue with the carburetor. That was definitely gunked up from sitting around for a while. That's what happens when you let things sit around for a while. But it's running good now. Neighbor's going to be happy. If you enjoyed the video and it helped you out, hit like and subscribe. And thanks to all the current subscribers, and we'll see you next time something breaks.